Today's episode of the Ramp It Up podcast contains explicit language and may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener's discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Ramp It Up podcast with your host, Ronell Sinuis.
Are you ready to ramp it up?
Ramp it up, ew!
Hey, yo, ramp it up, B.
Girl, ramp it up! Ramp it up!
The Ramp It Up podcast.
Hey, you need to ramp it up.
Ramp it up.
And we are back with another episode of the Ramp It Up podcast. I am your host and your favorite Zoe Wheels, Ronell. We are in the month of June. Today is the 15th, June 15th, a beautiful sunny day outside. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Shout out to those who tuned into our past episode and participated in Gun Violence Awareness Weekend. We need to stop the gun violence, not only here in the States, but across the world. Hopefully everyone did their part, brought some form of awareness to it, and you do your part as an individual by practicing gun safety, by supporting common sense gun laws, and doing your part again as a good citizen to keep our kids and our citizens safe from gun violence. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about Father's Day. Father's Day is right around the corner. This year we are celebrating on June the 19th. Traditionally in the U.S., Father's Day is celebrated on the third Sunday of June since like 1910 or 1911, really early in the 1900s. Across the world, it is celebrated on different days, but Father's Day here is on the third Sunday of June. Now, a little bit of a sour point is Father's Day does not get the same amount of love that Mother's Day gets. We all know it. We don't have to pretend. Even the commercials suck. Like, Mother's Day gifts are jewels and beautiful vacations and spa days, and you're getting discounts on all sorts of stuff. And Father's Day gift commercials are usually for tools, things to paint the house, mow the lawn. Like, it's more work. Those are not gifts, okay? Those are just subtle ways for wives and kids to tell dad there's more work to do. So yeah, dads don't get the love. I've worked in restaurants for years. One of the busiest days of the year in any restaurant is Mother's Day. Packed from open to hours after close. Father's Day is just like any other random Sunday. They just be like, here, Dad, here's a steak, or here's a chicken sandwich. Get over it. Mothers get the fancier, they give out flowers, get the fancier meals. Everyone gets dressed up. Dad is lucky if he gets a sirloin steak with some raggedy potatoes on the side. So put some love on the dads. Shout out to all the dads out there, and not just the paternal fathers. Shout out to all the dads out there, all the biological fathers, all the fathers who are stepfathers or who are father figures or who step into the lives of young people and play that role. Uncles and godfathers. I'm both. I'm an uncle and a godfather. I don't have kids of my own, but just all the men out there who step into that role to help raise the next generation. Shout out to all of you gentlemen. You may not have a mom and a dad at home, but I pray that there's some man out there teaching the kids, both boys and girls, how to live life. You need both, in my opinion. That's just how I feel. So shout out to all the dads and dad figures who are out there doing what they got to do. So speaking of great dads and father figures, on today's episode of the podcast, I'm going to sit down and have a great chat with a friend of mine who I met through Jackson Memorial Hospital at the Spinal Cord Injury Support Group in Miami. But shout out, of course, to not only the Miami chapter, but Broward and Palm Beach as well. All great people out there. But I'm going to be talking to Louis today. Louis Amaro is, I believe, the vice president of the Miami chapter. Currently, he is an athlete. He plays wheelchair basketball for the Miami Heat Wheels team. He played for about 15 years and currently for the Fort Lauderdale Sharks. But he's done wheelchair racing and a few other sports as well. He is a peer mentor. He does speaking engagements for school students. And just all around great guy. So we get the opportunity to sit down and chat, and he's given me great advice over these past few years, and we've had the opportunity to hang out a few times. So Lewis is a cool dude, and above all, he is a father. So we kind of talk about his experience living life up until his spinal cord injury, and then his experience overall as being a dad and a wheelchair dad, and just everything, piece of advice that he can give to other individuals with spinal cord injuries, especially those who are fathers and those who are aspiring to be fathers one day. So we're going to jump into that conversation. Before so, I got to give a couple birthday shout outs for the month of June. First and foremost, shout out to my dad, Mr. Kesnel Sinus Sr. His birthday is in towards the beginning of the month. Shout out to you, Dad, since we're doing a Father's Day episode. Great father, got quite a few beatings growing up, but hey, that's what dads do to keep you in line. Shout out to my dad, Mr. Kesnel, and his birthday. I'm not going to tell you how old he is, but he's old. Also, my nephew, Dominic Soto. Shout out to you, little dude. It is his first birthday. Another pandemic baby. Shout out to you, little buddy. Two important folks in our family, their birthdays out here in June. Also, before I forget, I got to tell you guys, don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. We are on Instagram at ramp.it.up.podcast. That's ramp.it.up.podcast on Instagram and Facebook. The Ramp It Up Podcast. Just search for us, follow. It's a great way to keep up with what's going on our pages, comment on our pictures, just see what's popping through our social media pages. Subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. Tell your friends. It's a great conversation we usually have here, great advice, and of course, you get to enjoy such a nice, calming baritone voice. But we're on all the major podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can find us now on Pandora. We're on Amazon Music. Pretty much anywhere where you can find your podcast, I am there or will be there soon. Most recently, we joined YouTube. We're on YouTube with our podcast, so you can check us out there as well. Not only subscribe, but rate us. Let us know how we are doing on the show. Give us a nice 5-star review if that's what you believe we should have. But I want to know what you guys think about the show. And if you have any opinions or guests or topic ideas, you can email us at rampituppodcast@gmail.com, rampituppodcast@gmail.com. So many different ways to keep in touch, to know what's going on, and of course, let us know what is on your mind. That's a lot, but right now, it's time for Louis Amaro and myself to have a great chat about Father's Day. On today's episode of the Ramp It Up podcast, I'm joined by a good friend of mine. We met at Jackson through the support group, and I have to say, welcome, Louis Amaro. How you doing, Louis?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
This has been a long time coming, man. You were one of the first ones when I told you about the podcast. You told me from jump, you can't wait to join me on it. And I really wanted you to, and I figured June would be the best time to have you on. You're one of the guys who invited me into your home. You shared a lot of advice from jump, and you're a dad. And I was like, Father's Day is coming up. I got to talk to you, man.
Absolutely.
So today we're kind of focusing on a bit of two subjects, and you're, you know a bit about both. And, we're going to share with our listeners. We're going to talk about, first and foremost, being a dad. I know that's one of the most important things a person can do, be a parent. And I had the pleasure of meeting your son and meeting your family, and you guys are great. And the month of June, the weekend of the 3rd through the 5th, is gun violence awareness. And unfortunately, from what you told me in the past, your injury came from a gunshot. So we're going to talk a little bit about both, but before we jump into it, the people got to know a little bit about Louis. Who is Louis Amaro? Tell them.
Absolutely, man. Again, thank you for the introduction, RC. I'm so glad to be on your podcast, and I've heard many episodes, and I must say you're doing a great job, and keep it up. So basically, Louis Amaro, born in Puerto Rico, raised as an Army brat, went all over the world before I landed here in South Florida at 10 years old. So at 10 years old, I was just a kid running around, playing with his friends and doing what they do. And, just growing up in unfortunately in an era where there was a lot of, violence and a lot of gangs back then. So, growing up, I stayed away from them and just kind of, steered away and went into, my education and just work, and as I came up and everything. And, as I'm transitioning into my teens, it's getting harder and harder. My parents were divorced, and at that time, 14, when that happened, I mean, that was like, the world fell off for me. And that's when the challenges started there. When your dad's not there, being a father is really important. And,
Yeah.
when you don't have your dad in your life, it's kind of hard to kind of like steer the way the right way when you don't have that guidance, or that your dad there for you. So, flashback back to 1999, May 26th, I was shot just, just defending my sister, actually, from being raped. Believe it or not, it was a gang initiation. They were telling me they were gonna, put her in, rape her and take her with them, and who knows what was gonna happen. You know what I mean, RC? So, I'm glad I was there, at that moment, and I was able to, you know, help her out and get free. And unfortunately, I turned my back to the getaway driver, who shot at me 6 times and hit me twice, paralyzing me from the waist down. T-pain.
Wait, so let's rewind a bit. So you did your best growing up to be as well behaved as you can, staying out of trouble. But unfortunately, yeah, in Miami, as much as people like to think we're this tourist spot and it's always beautiful, it's hard out here in these streets. You know what I mean? 305 is always that clean. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I could attest to it too, just trying to avoid certain aspects of life. But I'm assuming these are cats you guys knew from the block or from school or something.
No, actually, I didn't really know them. I mean, I seen them, I saw them on the block and hanging out and doing their thing, but I wasn't really, the individual who cared about that life. I was, my life was shifting, going some other direction. And yeah, unfortunately, people do think that, and you're right. It is a beautiful place. It does have beautiful beaches and everything, but like everywhere else, right? When you get down to it and you really go to where you need to go, then you'll see it's just as dark as anywhere else in the world.
Now, what part of Miami did you really grow up in?
I grew up in Hialeah, actually.
Okay. Yeah, so I can't say much because I grew up in North Miami and Carroll City, and they already know those parts are some of the harder areas, and they're known for, at least in the past, more so. Like Carroll City's cleaned up a lot, but yeah, there was a lot of gang activity in these areas, and unfortunately, you don't see that on South Beach, but in the hood areas, are certain more urban, as they like to say, we deal with it on a regular basis. So these cats have just been around. I guess they were just trying to come up, and they unfortunately had sights on your sister.
Yeah, man. Those were the plans. Those were their plans.
But hey, sometimes you gotta be a big brother, and so you were doing your thing. You thankfully got in the way and avoided that happening, and they opened fire on you.
Yes, right away. And everything happened in like 45 seconds. I got there. I was able to get her free. Turned my back to the driver. He shot at me 6 times, and when everything was over, I found myself paralyzed from the waist down, pretty much. Yeah.
Were they ever caught? Were they arrested, prosecuted?
Yeah, right away, actually. So they shot me, with their car facing, I think, eastbound on that street at that time. And uh, there were two uniformed officers and one undercover officer on the west side. So they didn't see, because they were behind them, but the officers did say and mention that they did notice the muzzle flashes and coming out of the car. So that was the first question they had as soon as they were stopped. Like, where's the gun?
Dang, and how old were you at the time?
I was 21 years old, actually.
Dang, you're essentially just a man now, You just, life is really getting started. You're graduated. You're probably working, trying to figure out what's going on next. And these guys essentially, first of all, tried to steal your life, but they've now derailed a lot of your plans.
Yes, they did. And the good thing is, I due to having a good head on my shoulders and just always being positive, I was able to, get over the adversity and kind of use what I've been through to help others, basically, in their lives. Whether it be something similar, or just a similar, incident, or just a similar, just diagnosis, basically.
Now, we did meet at Jackson, so I want to know, tell me a bit about your experience inpatient. Like you're a young man, strong, handsome dude, and stuff just changed on you. Tell me a bit about your inpatient experience and just your overall experience at therapy.
So I must say I had a very, very good experience at Jackson Memorial Hospital. That's where I did my therapy. It was wow, an amazing journey. I actually was able to get 4 months of therapy there, which is not available anymore.
No.
Unfortunately, due to insurances and all that. And yeah, I was able to be fully independent when I came out. I actually had a job when I came out of inpatient therapy. I also had a license. I had my license through Judy Hammelberg and the driving rehabilitation program. I mean, uh, compared to now, it was an awesome experience. The therapists that were there, the crew, the doctors, the neuropsychs, the whole team that was behind my rehabilitation and my just it was an amazing team, and I couldn't have not done it without them for sure.
I know you're paraplegic, but can I ask what level?
Yes, I'm actually a T10 complete. So I still got the bullet lodged inside my back as well.
Oh, they never got it out.
No, never removed it. Mm-mm.
Dang. Well, did they say like it was life threatening or it made things worse or?
Not life threatening, but why would we go in there and take out something that's not gonna, it's not going to poison your blood, with lead, or, and then if we go in there and try to take it out, we could probably damage the cord higher, a higher injury, or so. Then so my, they were like, we're not going to. Dr. Green was like, I'm not gonna get in there and do it. So
Okay. All right. As long as you're good, that's what I want to make sure.
yeah, I was good with
I
it.
have to shift one morning, so
Yeah.
so, again, as far as the therapy went, I know we may not have had some of the same therapists because I know you know the whole crew that I kind of dealt with. But let's
Correct.
talk a bit about the support group. I know it was still relatively new around that time, but what role did they play in your recovery?
Actually, the support group was never formed then. I mean, they had something small going in the conference room of the second floor of their rehab building before it became Lynn Rehab. But I will say that I did have a very good you know s- uh, mentor. My mentor was Robert Howell. So shout out to Robert Willie One Locks. Thanks to him coming next to me and always talking positive and just bringing that positivity around me, letting me know life's not over. I mean, look at me, I drive. I'm a man who, also can still have sex and date and all these other things I thought were over for me. Like, oh man, am I going to be able to do all these things? And thank God I had Robert to actually shed a light on me and tell me, absolutely, man, everything's going to be a little different, but you're going to be able to do the things that you were doing before. So that kind of gave me a lot of hope actually after that conversation. So
Yeah, I'd say this. One Locks is a cool cat. I'm working on getting him on here as well. So we'll have him in the near future for the listeners who don't know who Robert is. But he's a cool cat, and we'll get him on here real soon. And that's one of the things I can say I really appreciated about my journey as well. For one, just meeting other guys. Like, you don't meet too many young men. It's not great. I was in my 30s when I got injured, but just the fact that you guys are really open and, like you said, the peer mentor makes a big difference. Not only are they people who could relate to what you're going through, but like I said, for yourself, you invited us out. Like, yo, let's go hang out, let's do things, because the first thing that kind of hits you is, man, I'm just gonna stay home. You don't want to get back out in public, but I can say the group that I've been a member of, you guys have always been real cool and encouraging to get back out, not only socially, but get back to work or school, whatever you're doing. So, for
yeah.
listening, support groups are very helpful. They might not be for everybody, but they're very helpful.
Definitely. The spinal cord injury support group is definitely something that, being a part of as a president and vice president in the past, and actually vice president now. Again, as as a board member, it feels good to be able to come back and share some ideas and just keep helping out. I mean, my purpose was just that. I mean, I found my purpose, and it was just to help individuals get over anything they've been through and just give them the most positive resources and feedback that I can give them, basically.
All right, so we're focusing on two real topics today. We're talking about gun violence and we're talking about being a dad. And you said you were about 21 when you were hit, but you said you were already a dad at that point. Can you just rewind a little bit? Tell us about, becoming a father, what that experience was like for you.
So I had my son at my early 20s. So at 21, he was already, a year and few months. So he was never remembers me walking, which doesn't bother me at all. But, it's cool that, through what I've been through, my son and my now ex-wife are actually, you know, one of the two biggest support systems that I had back then. They were the reason for my drive. My son was coming to therapy with me and, being a part of my therapeutic services. And, and that just kept me going. And I was like, okay, this is the reason why, I have to get myself, adapt to this new life and get up and go and listen to my therapist, listen to my psychologist, and just basically keep focus on positivity and stay doing the things that I was doing before, and just in a different way, pretty much.
And that's dope to hear. And I've had the opportunity to speak to a couple other dads. You know, a few of them between Alex and Alfredo, and they've talked about being a dad prior to injury and also having kids post. And a question I always like to ask them is, so what happens when your kids realize that you are in a chair, whether they knew before or after? Like, what was that conversation like when they realized dad is not necessarily the same as the other dads on the playground and stuff?
Yeah, so that's one thing that was tormenting me, when I was coming up, and who's gonna teach my kid how to ride a bike? What playground can I take him to? What would I be able to? First of all, being in a chair. So all those things were definitely in my mind, and I was like, I was definitely tormenting myself with that. But the good thing is that I learned from other dads, and let me tell you, man, it's definitely been a blessing. It I wouldn't change it. I mean, I was young, but again, everything happens for a reason. He was one of my, still is actually my support system, and we talk a lot, and we still communicate. But yeah, I mean, being a dad before or after is definitely a blessing. For those of you that can have a child after, it's definitely a blessing because I tried actually to have another child after my injury, and I wasn't able to. So
Okay.
again, so yeah, it's very important to understand that, again, things are put in your life for a reason, and that's probably why God said, you know what, I'm going to give you a child early in life, because later on in life you're not going to be able to have one. So I'm very, very, very grateful for that, for my son and Myra and everyone else who was involved in my care coming up.
I've heard some unfortunate horror stories of people who've been raising their kids post injury, and unfortunately, it's not other kids that tend to be the obstacle, but it's other adults or other parents who give weird looks or who say something outrageous. I'm sure you may have had one or two, but can you think of any, like, I don't want to say altercations, but situations where another adult kind of got out of pocket, assuming that you weren't being a full real dad just because you had an injury?
Yeah, actually, I had that actually with one of the coaches from the YMCA, because they asked me if I would coach, if I would, because I know the game of basketball. So they asked me if I would coach. I'm like, yeah, and then I see one of the coaches laughing, and I just roll over there, and I'm like, hey man, I was just wondering if you saw anything funny on me, or if there's something you need to say to me, not with an altercation, just asking, just conversing, right? And he says, no, I just don't think that you're going to be cut out for this. And I said, cut out for what? I don't think you're going to be able to coach a bunch of kids that walk, and you're in a wheelchair. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. All right. So, well, then let me show you, what I can do then. So, unfortunately that year, I actually coached the team to the championship game, but I had a basketball tournament myself to go to. And I kind of went, I shouldn't have gone, but I went to it, and a team unfortunately got second place. But it would have been good to get that championship under my belt in a wheelchair, just to show it don't really matter what you're in or what situation you're in. As long as you got the right mind and you got and and you're set towards winning and doing the right thing, you'll be okay.
That's when you're like, I don't even care if these kids win. I just want us to win, to shove it in your face, just to show you. And it's kind of outrageous for someone to have the balls to tell you in your face, yeah, man, I mean, what you know about ball? Like, you didn't play ball at all in life or have any experience or any knowledge that you can share with a kid. Like, just because you physically can't do it doesn't mean you don't have insight on something. And
Exactly.
again, I mean, I wanted to get into it too, but it's not like you don't physically play ball because you were part of some of the wheelchair basketball teams here in Florida.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I played. I'm actually. I played for the Miami Heat Wheels. In my that was where I started my adaptive sports career. It was actually introduced to me back at Jackson. Believe it or not, when I was in inpatient, the coach came by and Rita. I'm not Rita. I'm sorry, but what's her name? The rec therapist back then. Anyway, it'll come back to me. But the rec therapist came to me and said, "Hey, I know you like sports. The basketball coach is here from the Miami Heat Wheels." And I was like, "Really? You could play basketball from a wheelchair?" And they were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, he's here. He's recruiting. So if you want to meet him, get in your." So right away, I got put my clothes on, jumped in my chair, and went to meet the coach. And yeah, as soon as I shot that basketball, first, yeah, I fell in love with the sport. So after Miami Heat Wheels, then I'm currently playing for the Fort Lauderdale Sharks right now. Yeah,
And you know what? I've known about it. I've seen it on TV and stuff like that. But it's different when you actually have the injury and it's not personal. Like you're in that world now. And I've had conversations with you guys, and I found out about wheelchair basketball, wheelchair boxing, tennis, dancing, bocce ball. Like there's so many activities that um, again, they've existed for a while, and people assume because of an injury, whether you've had an amputation or a spinal cord injury or whatever disability you may be facing, that you just can't participate in. But just some minor deviations, like wheelchair rugby was one of the craziest sports I've ever seen. I'm like, these cats are just as crazy, if not crazier, than regular rugby players. You know what I mean? So it's kind of dope for one, the fact that they're there and that it gets people up and about because, as we know, exercise is a big part post injury. So just to have these activities and just to feel like you're still part of a team and you're getting these championships. I know they did the documentary, and I told you about it. Like that year, I got injured. I happened to watch the documentary of the wheelchair basketball teams just to get injured later on that year. So it's kind of crazy, and it's funny how the world works.
yeah, sure is.
You said you played how long for the Miami Heat Wheels?
I played about 14 years with them, and then I've been playing four years now with the Sharks.
Okay. All right.
So I've been involved from very young. I mean, and I've done a lot more sports than just basketball. I mean, I've also done some hand cycling, some marathons, some rowing, some adaptive rowing. I've done some sled hockey, tennis. I mean, I've done a bunch of sports, man. And let me tell you, adaptive sports have really, really helped me out in my recovery and my rehabilitation process as well.
It might be easier to ask you what sports haven't you played versus what do you actually have.
Exactly.
All right. So I mean, again, just our focus just being on a dad and stuff. And you said you did try post injury to have another kid, and it unfortunately didn't work out. And I've had the conversation with a few people who've done the IVF or who are able to still do it naturally. But just kind of to be open. Like I said, I was 30 when I got injured, and that was one of the first things that came to mind. Like, dang, marriage and having kids and stuff. Is that possible? So, do you have like any advice for any guys who are either young or older when they've got injured who are having these same thoughts, whether they can physically do it or if after having a kid, how difficult it may be to be a wheelchair dad?
Yeah, I mean, and again, also depending, on the level of injury that you have is part of it, of course. I myself, like I mentioned, I couldn't have any more kids after my injury, but I do know individuals who have, which is awesome. And what I say is, don't lose hope. I mean, whether you do have kids before your injury or you have them post, I mean, if it's meant for you to have them, it's gonna happen. like you mentioned, IVF, and there's so many programs out there right now that can actually help you out. I mean, they even have one through the Miami Project to Cure Paralysis. They have a fertility program there. So one of the things I do when I mentor is I let individuals know, hey, these programs are there. It's free to talk to one of the doctors, and just get a consult. Just go ahead and call them, get a consult, and see what if it's for you or not. Unfortunately, some of these programs have to be paid out of pocket, and some of the some of the prices are not doable for some individuals. But if you do have the resources to do it, I actually do recommend that you start your family and 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 have your family like you would if you were working. It's the same.
And the beauty of it is just in the world we live in, like there are many people who choose not to go the biological route. They adopt or they foster, they do different things. So there's so many different avenues for you to still be able to raise a kid and impart that knowledge or just help raise another great person in the world. So there are
Yeah,
different options out there for you.
sure is. Absolutely.
Now, what would you say would have been the hardest part of being just, again, wheelchair dad?
The hardest part was, I was thinking, when is my son gonna come up and kind of respect me the way he would if I were standing in front of him? Is he gonna be scared of the wheelchair when he starts noticing, or you know just seeing me? So I mean, I guess he saw me so much in it, and was always coming to my therapies. It was almost like part of his. I kind of made my injury like part of his life as well. Like I never hid anything from him. If I had to cath, or if I have to do things that I had to do, get dressed in bed or do anything, I always try to involve him in that. Hey, son, grab me this or grab me that. And, kind of, so I kind of kept him always involved. Every time we went to the hospital, like I said, he was there in my therapy sessions. Every time I went out to do some sports, he was part of that. He'll either help me out with the equipment, or he'll actually, when he grew up and got a little older, he was actually sitting down in wheelchairs and actually playing basketball with us, getting on the bikes and participating in different sports, just to teach him, like, hey, I'm letting you know how it works in my world, right?
That's
Versus
dope.
versus how it used to be. So I think me just having him around, these individuals, and just showing him how my lifestyle has changed now, and how it really didn't phase me. All it did was it. I mean, it definitely changed me as an individual, but it didn't break me as an individual, right? That's what the word I was looking for. So, he saw that, and at the end of the day, when he got older, he told me, Dad, I've always looked up to you, because no matter what you've been through, I mean, you've always been the bread maker. You've always been held down the family. You always were there for me when I did my sports. You were just there for me the whole time. So, the 3 months that I was doing rehab and I was inpatient, I wasn't in his life. But once I did get in there, it was over from there. I mean, we just kept it going like it was. I was a regular, just a regular individual, an able-bodied individual, but carrying myself around in a wheelchair, pushing myself in a wheelchair, basically.
That's dope. And again, I don't have any kids, but I'm a many times uncle. There's nephews and nieces running all over the place, and some of which were old enough to know me prior to the injury, and then others who were much too young to really remember, or who were born afterwards. And it's been a bit of a struggle, kind of, still being big Uncle RC, tall, strong guy who used to do all these activities, but similar to like you said, I think I've just done my best to have them involved in everything I was doing. And because I'm a higher level quad, I don't have hand and arm function, so there's a lot of activities I would have been doing I can't do. But I still just try to make sure I'm involved, whether it's going to movies or sitting with them while playing video games or reading a book, still helping with homework. And like you said, just making sure you're not hiding anything from them. Yeah, you don't want them to see your weaker moments, but what can you do when you got a UTI and they come to visit you in the hospital? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think, and some of my nephews, they asked me straight up when I first got injured. So what does this mean? Like, you're never walking. And, I've had some tough conversations. And of course, there were crying moments and all that stuff. But I think the beauty of it is, for one, just getting some of the advice from guys like yourself. And two, just being honest and open and showing them, look, I'm not fragile. I could still do a couple things. I'm still living life. I'm still, and like you said, still providing. Like, look, I might not get up and jump in the car to work, but I'm gonna sign on this computer and get this bread. You know what I mean, I might
Of
not
course.
be able to hands-on show you how to ride a bike, but we're gonna look up these YouTube videos, figure out how to do it together. You know, just finding some way to still be involved in their lives, I think, is the best way to, you know, come over some of those challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, man.
So now I know you do some mentoring work. Can you tell me a little bit about your peer mentoring and some of your speaking engagements you've done, like at schools and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got involved right away in the peer mentorship program because I said, the peer mentor who I had helped me so much that I owe it to in my community to do the same, right? To learn as much as possible, get as much as possible resources in me and help out. And so yeah, I've actually spoken at different high schools during grad night and all of that, and graduation, letting them know about drugs and alcohol and driving drunk. And even though I wasn't a drunk driving accident, but I do have friends, a lot of friends
Yeah.
that have been paralyzed or by motor vehicle accidents, or even have been killed. So I stress that a lot and teach them and talk to them about that. I was involved with before my work now, selling medical equipment, custom rehab technology like the ones that you and I sit on.
Yep.
And so I would go to like FIU, Nova, and just speak about one speak about my injury and what I do and how I overcame that. And then two, I would also be an educator as well, educate on equipment, educate on the process of getting it from ordering to evaluating to actually getting the equipment. I mean, I've had so much um the honor of speaking at so many places and just changing lives. And it's when you get those individuals that come up to you like, hey Louis, I used to do this, but now listening to you, I'm gonna actually do this and do the right thing. And that's where the satisfaction comes in. It's like, oh man, so you know eh, eh, you know eh, as long as you touch one or two individuals and you really really dig deep in them and change their aspect of life and the way of thinking. I mean, that's an honor to me. It really is.
And just to kind of make it personal, you weren't my peer mentor. I had Ryan Gabauer, and I spoke with Woody Beckham a lot in the beginning. But I think you were one of the first ones to talk to me about vocational rehab and
Oh
get,
yeah, man.
get you hooked up and get you back to work. And I took that to heart, man. I really did. And I jumped on vocational rehab immediately. They actually helped me get the laptop and the equipment that I have now to do the podcast. So first and foremost, I gotta say, thanks to you for real, because
Of course.
you know, giving back is an important thing. And as much as I've been given a lot by you guys and some of the guys from the Broward chapter and now through United Spinal and just people I've met over these last 6 years. And it's almost selfish to think that, I can't, forward it to somebody else. And, whoever I can help through the podcast, whether it's them hearing about people like you, hearing your stories or connecting to any services we come through. I think it's our duty, first of all, as humans, what I mean, as citizens of this world, like who doesn't want to give back when they've been blessed, whether you're Christian or not. A lot of these religions teach giving back, giving forward. It's better to give than to receive. And us
Oh
in
yeah.
positions where we've received catheters from someone or received free supplies, you've given me a ride home when transportation didn't come through. You know what I mean? Whatever these are, just doing what we can to give back to make life a little easier. And unfortunately, there are other individuals like us who've been hurt and they don't have these positive outlets. They don't have the support. And I'm praying anyone who's listening, or of a friend who's been injured, or who hasn't even been injured, just sitting home depressed or whatever it may be, like there are resources out here for you to kind of overcome what you're going through.
Oh yes, yes. One thing I do say that giving back has been one of my biggest blessings. And and even like you said, supplies, equipment. I mean, I've given away wheelchairs, adaptive bicycles for people to train with. Yeah, I mean, it's all about giving back, RC. It definitely is. I feel like, all of this helped me, and you're right. I mean, it's only right as a human being that you see others, rise and do good. And I'm so grateful for VR for giving you your equipment, and they're still helping me and providing me with things I need as well, just to keep me, employed and motivated.
Yeah.
and keep making this money, and it isn't all about that. But unfortunately, we're living in times where you need to make this money to survive and provide, right, as a provider for your family and things like that. So yeah, super grateful. And I'm glad that you're doing your thing. I know you said what you did before, and I was like, hey, RC man, you still got that golden smile of yours, and you still got your brain all 100%. So there's no reason why you can't do what you used to do before, right? So I'm glad that you took my advice and you put your research into it, and I'm so glad to hear that they were able to help you out, man.
Appreciate it. And to kind of tie it back into Father's Day, or just being a man in general, like a lot of our identities and our pride is wrapped into being able to provide, being able to protect. And I know post injury that ego takes a hit. Like, let's be real, you're not in the same physical shape you were in before. You're not earning the same money you were earning before. So a lot of people let that depression hit them. But again, this is just both of us saying, I ain't rich yet. I'm working there, but the reality is, you don't have to let your physical challenges or circumstances kind of hold you back there. Whether you want to become a father or a married man, whether you want to go back to school, or to be a mentor, to be a coach, to be an athlete, there are so many different avenues for you to do so. Again, like we said, there's support groups, there's different people you can go to get that information, because if someone's not telling you, you won't know it's possible to begin with. But the reality is, there's so many different ways. Your way doesn't have to be the same way as the next man. Just like Lewis said, hey, his son joined him playing these sports. That doesn't mean he didn't grow up and have a great childhood. And unfortunately, that's what people assume. If you're not doing it their way, the kid is going to be left wanting. But the great thing is, you were blessed to be in a situation where you could still raise him to be a great man.
Yes.
And just kind of wrap up the gun violence aspect, I know we've been seeing a lot of crazy stuff going on in the news, and it's nothing new, unfortunately, and I don't see a solution in the near future. That doesn't mean it's impossible. We just need the cats in office to get involved. We need our local law enforcement to get more involved in communities. But again, I know since you've done a lot of mentoring, you've probably had to talk about gun violence. Any words of encouragement to these young cats out here? Because we grew up in an era where cats just fought, and that was the end of it. But now
that's it. Shake hands and go. Shake hands and go. Whether you get beat up or not, hey, it's over, man. Are we done? If we're done, great. Let's move on. But yeah, man. I mean, there's so much violence now, and the worst part, RC, is they're getting younger and younger, man. I'm out here mentoring young men as young as 14, 13 years old. I mean, and my son being 24 now, I look at him and I'm like, oh my God, I thank God that I was able to keep him away from, the gangs and that negative lifestyle that, not, that some of these individuals have because of not having their father in their life,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad my son didn't say, oh, my dad is in a prison now, so he can't tell me what to do, or he can't father me like before. And I always told him, look, no matter what situation I'm in, dad is still dad. You're gonna respect me like you did respect me before, and you should respect me now more because of what you see me do and the adversity I got over.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, they're getting younger and younger, and all I can say is to these young guys is put the guns down, man. Seriously, there's no reason to be shooting each other out there for stupidity, because that's what it is, right? Stupidity. Raping and the territorial and the drugs. I get it. I mean, it's all part of life, but I mean, we're not going to get anywhere if we keep putting these guns up and shooting each other instead of just talking it out like men do.
And I know you know more than I do, but I was just looking at some of the stats, and there are like 14 to about 16% of individuals who have suffered traumatic spinal cord injuries have been through acts of violence, which are usually gunshot wounds. And I could literally name 10 cats we've come across, who men and women who are either in domestic violence situations, who were being robbed, or their houses were being broken in, or they were defending someone and someone came at them, or they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And again, unfortunately, children, like, it's one thing when adults, and it sucks to say that because all life is precious, but it's another thing where innocent kids are just minding their own business, just learning ABCs, my G, and then they're in the sights of someone who's doing an evil act. And again, gun violence awareness in this month is just talking about not taking away guns. You know, Americans, we like our guns. We like to go shooting. I do too. I enjoy the sport of it. I've never aimed at nobody except paintballs. That's different. But the reality is, you know, it's part of our life. It's part of the American culture. Fine, but that doesn't mean we can't find a way to make it safe. That doesn't mean we can't punish those who are showing aggressive behavior with these weapons. And you know, I pray that even though Lewis has overcome and he continues to mentor others, that less and less people, to eventually zero, people have to be in wheelchairs because of gun violence.
Yeah, let's hope so.
Last words of advice. I know I've kept you here. It's a work day, but any words of wisdom for the young man and the young fathers, or let's say this, you know, Father's Day is coming up later on this month. Any one trying to give gifts to their dads, don't give any. I hate when they give tools and stuff. Like, don't give more work. Like, yo, do something good. Like, give them a day at the spa or a vacation or a nice bottle of whiskey or something.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it's a gas car. Get definitely a gas car. I know my dad can use a gas car right now for sure. But words of advice, man. Spend time with your old man, and definitely, you know, even though, you know, if he is in your life or he isn't, just look for that mentor that you feel is a father figure to you, and you know, spend time, talk, you know, do things differently that you guys don't normally do. You know, go out and, you know, have a couple of beers, or, you know, even play some billiards. I mean, listen, the best thing you can give to individual is your time, your energy, your positive energy, and, you know, again, so yeah, that's all I can say, man. Just look for your mentor, look for your father. Father figure is an amazing individual in each of our lives. I'm blessed to still have my father in my life, even though, you know, we kind of fell off on my journey, you know, through my new life, but. You know, I was like, listen, I mean, I'm a Christian. There's no way that I'm going to hold this animosity. It's only hurting me inside.
Yeah.
Not so, you know, leave all that stuff behind, the animosity, and, you know, whatever happened in the past happened. We just got to move forward from here. And I say, you know, try to, you know, just recreate or just get back that relationship you have with your father, and just tell him that you love him, and tell all your loved ones you love them. And that's basically it, man.
Cool, and I can say the same here. I'm blessed to still have my dad around and still looking out for me, especially post-injury journey, and just being the man he's always been growing up. And there's a sentiment, unfortunately, that, you know, fathers aren't necessary anymore to raise kids. I rebuke that, man. There's nothing like having a strong man in your life. And unfortunately, some fathers don't stick around, or some pass away early. But like you said, having a strong father figure in your life, you guys cherish them. You know, we grow up not necessarily saying I love you all the time, but, you know, tell the old man you love him, you know, hug him, give him a good gift for Father's Day. Don't punk out. Ain't no more macaroni cards. We're giving money or a day off or something. But I think, and Lewis, you're an athlete, you're a mentor, you're a great father, and again, you're a good friend to me. You've always been supportive. I look forward to the next time we all get a chance to hang out, but I appreciate you joining me on the podcast today, man.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, RC.
All right, no doubt.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the show. Connect with the podcast on social media. Check out our Instagram page at ramp.it.up.podcast or email us at rampituppodcast@gmail.com. Until next time.